On this episode of the joshzodiac podcast. It will be a very happy Veterans Day to everybody out there, and I will talk about Veterans Day. I will also talk about some new developments in WWE as far as their independent signing are concerned. Raquel Rodriguez in some hot water. The new season of Andor is coming, and there are so many more topics we will be talking about in the show. Again, I'll be flying solo on this one. You don't want to miss this. Again, happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there. This is the Josh Zodiac podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Josh Zodiac podcast. The greatest podcast you've never heard of. That is, ladies and gentlemen, the podcast with no agenda and no real script. And as far as we know, and that's the story we're sticking to. This is the podcast that believes that every day should be Veterans Day, and you should thank one every time you see or meet one. And as you can tell, I'm recording this in the morning of Veterans Day. To all the veterans out there, I want to say happy Veterans Day. Thank you for your service. But there are a couple of specific veterans I want to say thank you to. First off, my dad was a veteran of the Army during the Vietnam War. I forget what year he got drafted, but he spent the latter of, 2.5, 3 years in Germany. And this is before the Berlin Wall dropped, by the way. So this is a whole different Germany he got to be stationed in. Also to my Uncle Dennis, he also was in the Army, but I believe his path went a different way. He ended up being in Korea. So, yeah. And then, I cannot believe I forgot this. My papa, Cecil Parker, was a gunny, as far as I can tell, from what I've been hearing. Was a gunny in the Marine Corps. Hoorah! So definitely a big shout out to him. He's no longer with us, but I'm sure he would appreciate us giving him some love today. And if I'm not mistaken, my Mima was also in the military. I don't have the specifics. I probably should have researched this before I jumped online, but you know what? Who has time for that? It's Veterans Day. I got free food to get today. But definitely my Mima and my papa, my mom's parents were both veterans. And then you come down to myself. I joined back in 98, did 8 years, got out in January of 2006. I did exactly 8 years to the day. Not many people can say that. Usually the people do an extra couple of days or whatever. I did 8 years to the fucking letter. And then there's my cousin Paul Fanning. He was a veteran of the Army. And as a matter of fact, he and I were both in the Gulf in 2003. Of course, he was on the land. I was at the sea, but we were both in country around the same time. So that's pretty freaking cool. And then a couple of years later, my cousin Erlene, but she goes by Lane, but she will always be Erlene to me. She joined the Navy as well. Believe she went through ET school. And she got to do some pretty cool shit. She got to go to Africa for a bit. And then she got to go to Guantanamo Bay, which, fuck that. I don't know if I could do that. That gig sounds like it's fucking hard. But to not just the family, but the friends that I've made and the people that I've met that were not in the military. I made a lot of friends that were civilians when I was in the military, most of which I'm still friends with to this day. And that's a special shout out to Alma and Ricky, two people that I met early in my military career, and they are still good friends of mine to this day. So to all those people, I want to say happy Veterans Day. Enjoy your day. Live it up. If you have to work today, that fucking sucks. I think, I got the day off, but, it is what it is. now that we got that out of the way, we got a lot to talk about today that I want to talk about today. Um, Before we do that, I need to check something here real quick. Cool. All right. Um, the past couple of weeks, we've had a lot of celebrity deaths. At least for me, some pretty close, close to home ones that actually matter to me. So let's do a little transition here. Thank you. The first one we're going to talk about is Terry Garr. Um, I believe this was people knew this was coming. It was just a matter of time of when it was going to happen. Um, I guess her real name was Terry Ann Garr. People know her best probably from Young Frankenstein as the laboratory assistant. She was also in Mr. Mom, Tootsie, Close Encounters, which I've never seen Close Encounters, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, but I've never seen that movie. I probably should watch it. She was also in Oh God, I totally forgotten about that one. And she had a big part in Dumb and Dumber. And I believe that's the last movie I ever saw her in was Dumb and Dumber. But I want to focus more on Young Frankenstein because that's the one I know her best from. That's the movie from the list of movies I've talked about is the one I've seen the most. And it's definitely one of my favorite movies of all time. Um, I do know when she auditioned for the role, um, I think it was on a dare, they told her, go in there and talk like you're German. And she walked in there and she nailed it. So good for her. She passed away on October 29th. I know it's been a minute. She was 79 and she passed away in Los Angeles. And she's originally from Ohio. I did not know that either. So I have the Wikipedia up because, I don't make notes. I just pull up web pages. So Terry Garr, you will be missed. Hope to see you in the next life. The next the next death is Tony Todd. Now, when I heard who the fuck is Tony Todd, and I got a lot of bit of hate from some friends, like, you don't know who the fuck Tony Todd is? I'm like, I don't. And I Googled him, and the first thing that popped up was Candyman, and I went, oh, that's that guy's name. And then I remembered, holy fuck, he was in a couple of episodes of Star Trek. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he played Worf's brother. So that definitely caught my attention. And of course, he was in the Final Destination franchise. He was in The Crow, and he was in The Rock. He was that Marine that becomes Rocket Man when Nicolas Cage shoots the rocket out into the sea. But Tony Todd is originally from Washington, D.C., and he passed away November 6th of this year. He was only 69. And wow, he was 6'5"? Holy fuck, he was my height. Fucking A. So say rest in peace to Mr. Tony Todd. But I think the biggest name on this list, and he just passed away recently on November 3rd, and he was 91, is Quincy Jones. People will know him from, he did music for the show Roots. He also got stuff for The Color Purple, the Broadway production, not the movie. He also helped produce and did the music for The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which a funny story, and I just saw this last night. Quincy Jones had a different theme in mind, and it was very upbeat. It was very Cosby Show-ish. And Will Smith was like, I don't want to fucking do that song. That song sucks. So Jazzy Jeff happened to be there with him, and Jazz was working on some stuff anyway. So he's like, "Well, try this," and he had this beat. Damn, my throat's all froggy now. And then Will Smith wrote some lyrics and went back and did it for Quincy. And Quincy goes, "Well, shit, that's better than the bullshit I put up with." So definitely Quincy knew when there was a hit. But he is actually best known for producing 3 of the most successful albums by a pop star. And that, of course, is Michael Jackson with Off the Wall, Bad, and, of course, Thriller. Thriller, by far the most sold record of all time and still sells to this day. It's fucking incredible how that works. He passed away on the 3rd of November in LA. Again, he was 91. we definitely want to say to him, rest in peace, and we'll see you in the next life. And those are the only celebrity deaths that I really wanted to talk about. There was a couple of other ones, but I didn't really know who they were. And my thing is, if you have to Google somebody, now Tony Todd's an exception because I knew who he was, I just didn't know his name, but his work spoke for itself. So I'm pretty sure if I had actually paid attention, I would have remembered his name. But yeah, so going to move on to the next topic. Andor Season 2 will be released on Disney Plus, according to D23 in Brazil. They're going to release the second season of Andor on April 22nd, 2025. Now, anybody who has watched the first season of Andor, it was fucking great. I mean, I liked the idea of the main character not being a Sith or a Jedi. He's just a regular dude. Granted, you get that with Han, but even in canon, Han has a form of the Force that gives him luck, and he's a great pilot. But Andor doesn't have any of that. Andor is just living life. You know, he's just a simple man making his way in the galaxy. You know, he's a fucking Jango Fett. Whoops, kicked my camera, sorry. But I'm excited to see where they're going to go with this. And from what I've been hearing, this is going to be the last season. This will lead up right to the events of Rogue One. So, I do know that there's still a little bit of hate from the fans for the Acolyte. Me personally, I like the Acolyte. It was a little slow at first. They definitely killed, spoilers if you haven't seen it, they killed Carrie-Anne Moss in the first 10 minutes of the show. And I'm like, the fuck? And then find out there's going to be flashbacks. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Okay, cool. But even then, the show was a little slow. Who the bad guy was a little predictable, but I'll tell you what, that motherfucker, woo, that dude went the fuck off, and he was ready. I didn't care about the pronouns. You know, I'm just wanting to watch a fucking show that I can get behind, and I like this show. This show was a different time in Star Wars. This was 100 years before the events of The Phantom Menace. So, yeah, Yoda would be there. What that dude with the long fucking head? I forget his name. Something Bundy or something. I forget. But he's in there, and of course the fans are like, "It's not accurate because it's not." I'm like, "Shut up, seriously." You know what I mean? Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau know what the fuck they're doing. They're the ones doing the show. They're the ones that approve everything. By the way, Kathleen Kennedy can go to hell. I hope she fucking gets fired because that bitch is ruining Star Wars, 100%. Off my soapbox. But again, The Acolyte was a great fucking show. And it left a couple of little teasers at the end that made you like, oh, cannot wait for season 2. And then, nope, it's been canceled. And a lot of the people that hated the show didn't even fucking watch it. They heard, oh, there's pronouns. Oh, there's this. Oh, there's that. Like, well, then what the fuck? And I've heard a lot of things like, oh, how can somebody why would they make that mistake again with having an apprentice who's older than the age they should be to start training? I'm like, you know, sometimes if you're stronger in the Force, maybe you need to be a little bit older. You know, granted, mistakes have been made, and I'm sure they've learned from them. Obviously not in the Phantom Menace. But at the same time, it's a fucking story. You know, the fans need to shut the fuck up. 100, and I will die on that fucking hill. I don't comment about anything like that because that's my fucking opinion and I'm going to stick to it. But you've got these fans that are going to force their fucking thoughts on a particular, have it be Star Trek or Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, whatever. They try to force their beliefs. It's almost like the Catholic Church in a way, or anybody who goes to church. They have their values and they're going to force them onto you. And if you don't, you're a bad person. It's pretty much the same thing, except there's a Bible involved. But they're both religions, if you think about it, because Jedi and Sith are a religion. It's a way of life. Tarkin calls it that in episode 4. But again, back to what I was initially saying, the fans need to shut up. 100%. Stop talking. You do not know what's best for the franchise. And I go back to an interview that Freddie Prinze Jr. did when he was doing Rebels, and he was getting a little bit of hate. You need to evolve with the show. You were stuck in the past. Now, granted, there was a time when I didn't like the prequel trilogies. I thought they were, except for 3. 3 was actually pretty good. But I felt like they could have been better. They could have been better. They could have been worse. And then the sequel trilogy came out. Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker. And I went, you know what? Prequel trilogy isn't that bad. And I'll die on that hill too, because, and Lucas with the prequel trilogy just did everything himself. And he had a bunch of yes men, and it lacked the story, and it was all visual effects, and it was lack of story, which is funny because there's a quote that Lucas talks about when he did the initial Star Wars. And he says, and I quote, special effects is a tool, means of telling a story. Special effects without a story is a pretty boring thing, unquote. And he's 100% right, because the prequel trilogies they didn't feel organic. They didn't feel real. With 4, 5, and 6, they went to locations, they shot. And even with 7, with J.J. Abrams, he went back to, locations and did that, which is, you bring back the originality of the show, of the movie, but the story was kind of like, it was episode 4 all over again. And if you think about it, episode 1 is a rehashing of episode 4. Obviously 1, 4, and 7, the first movie in each trilogy is like, well, let's see here. Let's have somebody on a desert planet. Doesn't have to be Tatooine every time. We take him off. He's force sensitive, and then we teach him the ways, and they blow up something at the end of the movie. Same shit every time. I mean, granted, it works, but there needs to be some originality, and that's why when The Mandalorian came out, I was like, oh, how are they going to run? And this is right after Rise of Skywalker. And again, I'll die on this hill too. Solo got such a bad rap because it came out 6 months after Last Jedi. Solo was not that bad of a movie. For the issues that it was having, they had a director, he left, Ron Howard came in and redid it. I had no issue with this movie. This movie was actually pretty good, considering all the shit they had to go through. Rogue One, by far, is in the top 3 Star Wars movies. And I may do a rating of that down the road, but Rogue One was fucking incredible. The last 10 minutes alone makes me want to watch it again. But someone's in trouble. Hopefully they're not coming for me. But like I said, with The Mandalorian, I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to like it. And again, it's a story about a guy who's not force sensitive. I watched the first episode, and I'm like, fuck, when's the next one come out? And even Ahsoka was pretty good too. Like everything, all the shows they've put out, even the Book of Boba Fett. Granted, it was Mandalorian season 2 or season 3, whatever. It was still a good show. And I've always wanted to see how Boba Fett survived the Sarlacc, because that's been canon for a minute. And it's like, how does he get out of the Sarlacc pit? We finally got to see that, and I was happy, like, cool. But then again, we see how the character evolves. He learns that there's more to life than money and credits and all this bullshit. So, but again, I'm excited for Andor season 2. I do know Skeleton Crew is coming out soon. I know nothing about that show. All I do know is it looks like a Star Wars version of Guardians of the Galaxy with the soundtrack they played in the background. So, I mean, I'm kind of like, Skeleton. I mean, I'm gonna watch it. It's Skeleton. It's Star Wars. I'm gonna fucking watch it. But and I had the same attitude with Andor. I thought, why are we giving this dude a show? And it ended up being really good. So maybe I should stop bitching, take my own advice, and just fucking watch and make a decision later. And usually when I watch a show like that, I'll watch a recap on YouTube channel called New Rock Stars. They're actually pretty good. I definitely will highly recommend them because they know what the fuck they're talking about. All right. enough Star Wars, enough soapbox. Let's move on to our next topic. The WWE has launched a new indie wrestling development program. And this is a story that was written on the 29th of October of this year. It'll be a first of a kind developmental program designed to provide up and coming independent wrestlers a pathway to potential career in WWE. The program will be called WWE ID, short for WWE Independent Development. I do like this idea. Let's see. I didn't really read this. They've had this before, but they're going more in depth. The only thing is that the only institutions or wrestling schools that are allowed to send talent up like this. Oh, I take it back. They're going to send them to these particular locations. I'm sorry, I thought it was just those. But they've already signed like 2 or 3 people already, and I don't have the names in front of me. But Booker T's Reality of Wrestling, which is in Houston. Of course, Cody Rhodes' Nightmare Factory down in Atlanta. Seth fucking Rollins' Black and Brave Academy in Davenport, Iowa. The Elite Pro Wrestling Training Center in Concord, New Hampshire. And the Knox Pro Academy down in LA. I do like this idea only because there's a lot of really good independent wrestlers out there. I don't have names. I won't give names. And that's just in Texas alone. Granted, I don't live in Texas anymore. I live in Idaho. But there's a lot of really good talent out here that could be the next NXT or WWE superstar. Hell, Roxanne Perez wrestled down in South Texas for a number of years, and she got, did her thing, and then she got the call up to go to NXT, and she's been thriving. I know she had a health scare there for a minute, but as far as I know, she's back up and going. But yeah, I'm on board with that because you keep the talent pool fresh. You keep it. You can put people in and out like that. Granted, you don't want to get saturated though, but you're definitely keeping an eye on what's out there, and you only want to give the big names a shot. I did know there's a couple of people in all content that I would definitely endorse for this. I won't drop their names. I don't want any jealousy in the program because there was a little bit of hate yesterday. But definitely there's a lot of talent out there, and I'd like to see WWE kind of dip into that pool and just, who is it? What's her name? Izzy Moreno, who was the Bailey Hugger biggest fan. She was a little girl back in the day when Bailey was in NXT. Now she's an independent wrestler. So dream booking on that would be Bailey, being the heel. I mean, she's not a heel right now, but maybe down the road she's a heel, and Izzy comes in and goes, you were the one I looked up to. You're the reason why I'm here. And then Bailey just shits all over her, and then they have their feud. That's dream booking right there. And you could write that, and it would be fucking incredible. So I'm on board with that. I just wish they had a program for people like, managers or commentary, because I would love to do commentary for WWE. It'd be fucking fun. Or even a manager, just be a Paul Heyman, just out there talking shit, be the mouthpiece for somebody who is horrible on the mic, like Ricochet. I heard his interview with CTV not too long ago, and I'm like, dude, there's no wonder you didn't get a push. You suck on the microphone, bro. I'm not any better, but I'm not a wrestler. Not anymore, anyway. All right. So enough about that. The last topic, before I move on to some other things, Raquel Rodriguez. Oh, lovely Raquel, who's number 3 on my list of favorite female wrestlers. You got Becky. Becky will always be number 1. I don't give a shit what happens. Becky's number 1. Alexa Bliss is number 2. And Raquel has become number 3. Raquel is actually from Texas, so she definitely gets my love. But she got into a little hot water, and let me back up a little bit here. I was listening to, again, CDB. He's got a great podcast. If you don't listen to it, please. It's Insight with Chris. Definitely a good podcast. And he does professional wrestlers from all factions, WWE, AEW, ROH, all that stuff. But he was talking to Rey Mysterio. I'm sorry, not Rey. Dominic Mysterio about when he moved to LA or to Vegas. And Dominic was like, "Yeah, wasn't sure if I wanted to move there because I wasn't sure if they had an In-N-Out burger." And sure enough, they did. And then it happened. Chris was like, "Oh, so In-N-Out's way better than Whataburger, right?" And then Dominic's like, "It's fucking trash. In-N-Out's the way to go." And I'm like, dude, I thought I couldn't hate Dominic anymore. Achieved. Definitely unlocked the goal there. So, and I'll give my own opinion about that later. But Raquel, not too long ago, on her X, formerly known as Twitter, God, she looks pretty. She had put on here, had In-N-Out for the first time in a long time, and it was a lovely little reminder as to why Whataburger will forever be superior. Those chopsticks y'all call fries, #gross. And she got so much hate for that. Let me set the scene here. I lived in California for a little over 6 years. The nearest Whataburger to me was 5 hours away in Tucson, Arizona. And you'd be stupid to think if I didn't make a road trip every now and again for a Whataburger. I would make a day out of it. I'd go in the morning, get a breakfast, go do some shopping at the mall, whatever the fuck. Grab Whataburger on the way, grab one for the road. And it was usually a triple. Yeah, I wasn't a fat kid then. I fucking lived with it back then. But In-N-Out burgers are not that big. They're not very big. Whataburger is like that. And when they were making Whataburger, the owner, the creator of Whataburger, wanted a burger that you could hold with 2 hands. Granted, I could hold a Whataburger with 1 hand, but I get what he was trying to do. He wanted a bigger burger for a good price. Granted, the Whataburger quality has declined a little bit since the Chicago buyout, but it's still way more superior than In-N-Out burger. And again, you're gonna love what you know. People from California are gonna sit there and say, "Oh, In-N-Out's the more superior burger." That's fine. That's what you know. However, I am from the hometown of Whataburger, born and raised. Nothing comes close. Not even a restaurant burger comes close. You know what I mean? And I like the idea that I can go get this burger, take it home, and destroy it. My ideal, excuse me, my ideal perfect Whataburger, which I get every time, is number 2, the double cheese, bacon, ketchup and mustard on Texas toast, no veggies. I don't like fucking rabbit food on my burger. I will water size that bitch with a Dr. Pepper, little to no ice, and then on the side, onion rings, large, which is funny because I don't like onions, but I like onion rings. Fucking weird. And then a side of gravy. And the gravy is for the onion rings and the fries and the burger sometimes. So the point I'm trying to make here is that you're going to like what you like. You may be wrong, California, In-N-Out, but it's still your opinion. You're entitled to it. And giving her hate the way that people did, I just, look at her. You can't see what I'm looking at, but fuck, she's beautiful. And if she says Whataburger is the way to go, then Whataburger is the way to go. Fuck it. Anyway, going to transition to the next topic. Moments in history on November 11th. And there's quite a few on here. I was looking at some of the stuff. There's a lot of stuff that goes on, but I'm going to pick just the highlights. The first one is happening during the Civil War in 1864 when the destruction of Atlanta begins. I don't know a whole lot about that, but I do know that was there towards the end of the war. The North was definitely engulfing the South and just taking charge. We all know how that tragic period in American history ended. On this date in 1978, the Dukes of Hazzard made history with a car jump, which is kind of cool, and we all know the Dukes of Hazzard. Granted, it's not very PC now with General Lee and the Confederate flag right at the top. On this day in 1942, the draft age was lowered to 18. I'm not sure what the age was prior. It had to have been at least 21 or maybe even 25. Let's see, there's a couple of other things. Um, the last one, which is fitting for Veterans Day, the dedication of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in 1921 went down today. So that's kind of fitting that on Veterans Day they dedicated the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. So that's kind of cool. The last thing I want to talk about this past weekend, those that maybe don't know, I don't really advertise this, but I'm a huge fan of stand-up comedy. I love stand-up comedy. Always have, always will. People like Steve Martin, Robin Williams, Richard Pryor, um, George Carlin, Gary Shandling, Roseanne was a stand-up comedian back in the day. Tim Allen, there's just a bunch of names, but the new brew of comedians like Anthony Jeselnik and Carlos Mencia, Brad Williams, people like him, they're the new generation and they're pretty funny. But the one that sticks out the most, and I got to see her perform for the first time, and was not disappointed, was Eliza Schlesinger. She's been around for a minute, but this was the first time that I actually had an opportunity to see her live. I got a decent seat. I got to tell the story. It did tell us to get there early because of traffic. I'm like, okay, cool. So I left maybe an hour before the show was supposed to start, thinking I'd get there, and even the GPS was like blue all the way there. And then when I get to the last quarter mile, I was stuck there for a fucking hour because I didn't know, and I didn't think to look. Where the performance center was, it was the Morrison Center in Boise, Idaho, on the campus of Boise State, the Blue Field. I didn't know that there was a football game that same time at that show. So traffic was LA traffic on a fucking at 5 o'clock on a Friday. It was bad. And I was literally in that quarter mile for an hour waiting to get in. And I'm so aggravated because I got a good seat. I didn't want to miss anything. And luckily when I got there, she had another comedian that opened up for her. He was the one that was doing his set, and I'm like, okay, cool. I didn't miss any of hers. I was super happy because I paid for the meet and greet after the show, and I didn't want to miss anything. And she came out, and like I said, I've seen every special she's done, and there is so much more electricity in the room when you see her live. She's got so much energy. She is all over the fucking place. She knows those freaking crazy horses she does, which inspired the one that I just did for you. But she was just so funny, and she's very knowledgeable about what she wants to talk about. Yeah, she's talking about, stuff about that pertain to women, but she picks on the guys too. She's not gender specific like other comedians. I know Daniel Tosh will shit on women and then kind of shit on dudes a little bit. Anthony doesn't like this shit on everybody. He don't give a fuck. But Eliza definitely was trying to help out the guys, and there was one story she was telling where she talks about she was pregnant with her second kid, and she was in a hole-in-the-wall airport waiting to fly out, and she still performed when she was pregnant. And she said she met this man who was a big old guy, like 6'2", 6'3", full head of hair, just this big chiseled man, right? And she's talking about this guy. Well, I'm 6'5", and I was by myself. Show's over. They told the VIP people to stay in your seat. Do not leave. Just stay where you are. We'll call you when we're ready. So I'm stand up to let people pass me by, and it seemed like every woman that walked by me was like, "Hey, were you the guy that she was talking about in her story?" And I'm like, "No, man, I have hazel eyes, not blue eyes. The guy she's talking about had blue eyes." But it seemed like every chick walked by, "Are you the guy?" "No, man, I'm not. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for coming." Whatever. And I go to the back. Excuse me. I go to the back they gave us an autograph poster, which was cool. I will frame that down the road. It's in the closet for now. And when I was taking the picture with her, I was expecting more interaction, and I didn't get that. That's fine. I get it. Some people definitely were a little spooked by COVID. Some weren't, like myself. So she just stood by me, and she was just like putting her hands out, and my heart was through my chest, and I didn't have my watch on. My Apple Watch was at home, and I forgot to charge it. So I'm pretty sure my heart rate was like 180 million beats a second, just going crazy. So I stood there, and she just did her pose, and I was like, ah. The picture is actually on my Facebook. I posted it, and I put it with the other comedians I've taken pictures with, including Brad Williams and Carlos Garcia. But it's just, she was so cool. She did comment about my hair because I have a full head of fucking hair. And she was like, "You have a lot of hair," just like that guy talking about. Like some ladies thought I was him because I'm a big guy and whatever. And I was talking to some of the fans too, and they were like, "We thought you were here too." I don't know how. She said blue eyes. They're not blue. They're hazel. Whatever. But I had a great time, and I'm looking forward to seeing her live again. And as a matter of fact, later in the month, I think it's the 23rd of September. Let me check my calendar because I don't fucking remember. Yes, the 23rd of September, which is right before Thanksgiving. I'm going to see Christopher Titus, another comedian that I kind of fell in my lap. My brother JP, he is a huge Titus fan because he watched the show. I think he has it on DVD. And he's been kind of pushing Titus on me for a while. I started watching the show, listening to his stand-up, and it's pretty fucking funny. So when I saw this, I'm like, I gotta go fucking go watch it. And it's funny because I sent him a text like, "Hey, guess who I get to see perform live? What comedian?" And he's like, "I don't know." And I sent him a picture of Titus, and he's like, "You motherfucker." He's like, "God damn it." So definitely had a great time. And I mentioned Eliza because she does a lot for the USO, for the troops, much like Robin Williams did back in the day. So I definitely wanted to show her some love. Again, I can't wait to see her again. And funny, on Instagram, she posted, "I'll be in Boise the weekend," and all that. And I made a comment on my Instagram. "I got my ticket and my VIP pass. I'll be there. Can't wait." And she fucking hearted it. I'm like, dude, that just made my fucking day. I'm a simple creature. Come on now. I'm a simple man. I'm not easy. I'm easy to please. You know, just don't get on that side. That's all I gotta say about that. But that is all I have for today. I'm doing this before I go out on my venture for the freebies that we get on Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day, Veterans Day. Wow. Yeah, it's not my birthday yet. But I definitely want to record this before I go out and get a free haircut. My hair looks like shit right now. That's why I'm wearing a hat. For getting a free haircut, then free lunch, and then a free dinner later tonight, and then do nothing. Maybe watch a movie. But again, this will conclude this particular episode of the Josh Zodiac podcast. Did I just go in there? Let's try that again. This will conclude this episode of the Josh Zodiac podcast. I don't promote this often. I need to do it more often. As of maybe 2 weeks ago, I am now the only commentary talent at All Content Entertainment down in Corpus. So that being said, if you want to hear more of me doing commentary, talking shit, trying to be funny on the microphone, definitely go like, subscribe, and follow All Content Entertainment. You can find them on Facebook, and you can find them on YouTube. They have a YouTube page just like I do, and they have past episodes on there as well. We recently posted the Facebook Fight Night. They have a Rumble of their own with a guaranteed contract for a title shot. Definitely give that a watch. It was a lot of fun to do that commentary. As for the podcast itself, the search, like, and subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts. And that's for the audio version. If you want the video, it's on YouTube. Just search the Josh Zodiac podcast. I did inadvertently create another page that's titled The Josh Zodiac Podcast. The original one is just called Josh Zodiac Podcast. I need to fix that. I will. I promise. Um, just I need some time. You can also follow me on my social medias for the show. That's TikTok and Facebook. Just search the Josh Zodiac Podcast. And on X, where I'll just same with Facebook, I will post possible news stories and memes and this funny shit. You can search that up and go to at Josh Zodiac Pod. Those damn character limitations are fucking shitty. And if you have a question um, for me, you want me to have a question or a topic you want me to talk about, just shoot me an email. Just shoot me an email at thejoshzodiacpodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to support the podcast monetarily, you could, maybe buy me a tea. I'm not a coffee guy, I'm a tea guy. So give me a tea at Starbucks. But you can definitely support the podcast on CashApp. That's $JoshZodiac. And or at Venmo, which is at joshzodiac. It is greatly appreciated, and I will definitely give you a shout out on the show whenever somebody donates monetarily, and that's Scout's honor, wrong hand, whatever. Obviously, I wasn't a Boy Scout. But again, ladies and gentlemen, this will conclude this episode of the Josh Zodiac Podcast. I want to thank you for joining me today. You have many more options of podcasts. There's so many of them out there. I want to thank you for listening to mine and hearing me bullshit and ramble for a good 40 minutes. But thank you for joining me. Again, I am the Josh Zodiac. This is the Josh Zodiac Podcast. May you be healthy and happy, and may the force be with you.